Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. Every Monday, Gene Marks and I talk about the issues we think business owners should be following. Welcome, Gene.
Hey, Lawrence. Great to talk to you. Been a little bit.
Yeah, I've missed you. It's great to have you back, although I know you're technically still in Florida. But I missed you. I had no one to argue with. I want to talk to you about your trip to Florida, but let's save that for a moment. Let's start. You recently wrote a piece suggesting that smaller businesses adopt a 4-day work week for their employees. The idea being that it's a good benefit to offer in the middle of a labor shortage, something that employees might find attractive. Am I right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, the 4-day work week is right now. There's such a buzz about it. It's in the news. Employees kind of know about it. They get excited about it. It's something like, listen, recruiting employees is like it's a marketing thing, right? I mean, you're trying to sell an employee to come and join your company, so you want to present that employee or prospective employee with as much enticement as possible,
especially right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly, so why not say to prospective employees, yeah, we offer a 4-day work week. Now, the thing about the 4-day work week is lots of people have lots of different definitions of what a 4-day work week is. On the one hand, the 4-day work week is like a 32-hour work week that's only, where you're still paying the people 40 hours. And in fact, I interviewed, one congressman from Mark Takano, California, who actually introduced legislation this year in Congress. He got about 100 progressives behind him to introduce a 4-day work, like mandating employers to limit their work weeks to 32 hours, So there's that kind of extreme. Then there's like the other extreme, Lauren, like 4-day work weeks are kind of common in some professions. Like, don't you know, like nurses who will work like 4 days a week and then, 4 10-hour days and then take 3 days off. You know what I mean?
I think some nurses are working 7 10-hour days now.
Yeah, that's also true. Okay, right now. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
However you want to define what that 4-day work week is, to me, though, the whole 4-day work week thing is a buzzword and really another word for flexibility. We learned that during this pandemic. People were arguing for so long about wanting more flexibility in their schedules. And, us older guys that are running businesses are like, no, no, no. And then you realize that, if the pandemic comes, people are working remotely and from home and from all over, and the work's still getting done. And you're like, maybe we can be, more flexible and offer a quote unquote 4-day work week. When that 4-day work week really defines itself as just getting your job done in as many days as need be. And if a supervisor approves that, good for them. And, rather than, evaluating people the number of hours they're working, you just, evaluate them on their deliverables. You know what I mean?
So long as the work gets done.
Yeah, as long as the work gets done. So I guess what I'm saying to my what I said in the Guardian piece, but I also am saying to my clients as well, is that, you should reconsider your scheduling and your flexibility. Call it a 4-day work week if you want to. That's fine. You can say, listen, we expect you to get 40 hours in during the week, but then again, it's more important for you to just get your deliverables done. And if you can get that done in 10 hours, good for you. Go for it. Then, we officially have a 4-day work week policy,
I have to say, I have run this idea by a bunch of owners, and everybody's at least paying lip service toward flexibility at this point. I think everybody understands at some level that that times have changed. You have to be more flexible than you used to be. But when you label it a 4-day work week, people tend to, I don't know. I'm not hearing a lot of receptivity. I'm wondering what kind of reaction you get from your clients when you raise it.
I have 10 employees on the payroll, right? And they we're a totally virtual company. Nobody clocks in, nobody clocks out. Like, I don't know. I don't see them in the office because we don't have an office. So I don't know if they're working 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week. All I care about is that they're chargeable to a certain extent to our clients. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And in addition to that, we have other deliverables and goals that they all set. So I don't care if they get how many hours it takes them to, get their work done. So it is really a flexible arrangement. And, I could call it a 4-day work week, but it's really just a flexible arrangement. You know what I kind of liken it to, Lauren, is like the whole work from home thing. Just in the news this week, Google is spending $1 billion on office space in London. And, Facebook this in January is made its largest office lease ever in its history down in Austin. And, you think to yourself,
what are they thinking?
Yeah, didn't they get the memo that everybody's working from home? But people aren't working from home. They're going to offer flexible arrangements, but they know that people need to be in the office. So there's this whole work from home thing, work from home, work from home, work from home. And really, it's not going to be that way.
Well, we should acknowledge that work from home and the kind of flexibility that you and I are talking about and to some extent enjoying ourselves, that's a particular slice of the economy. I mean, if you work in a retail store, if you work in a factory, it's a little bit different.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there are some people that just have to be on site to get work done, which brings me back to that nursing example. Why can't, and I do have, I have one client actually that he does shift work. They make containers, and, he says that people work 40-hour shifts, but they can decide when those 40 hours are and how long they want their shifts to be. So he's got some employees that work 3.5 days a week. They work 12-hour days and a half day, and then they're done. And then that's what their thing is,
Yeah, I think it's tricky. It can be done in a factory setting, but it's trickier because there may be people whose jobs are dependent on other people's activities, and that has to be coordinated.
Could be, but I guess my point is that we have to accept that the whole flexibility discussion is a big discussion, and it's a big benefit to offer. And as an employer, you can offer this without it costing you any money, as long as you just you match your deliverables from your employees to to the employee, to whatever the period is.
I think you just hit the most important point. It's a nice benefit to offer employees, and it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And then the other thing is you can also, you don't have to offer it right away. You can offer it, say, you work for us for a year. We can then give you more flexible scheduling, so it's something you can award employees or reward them after they have some tenure with your business.
Next topic. I recently published a tweet, actually, in the Morning Report asking about the best way to handle a complaint about a website not being ADA compliant. This business's lawyer recommended paying $10,000 to settle. No suit had been filed. It was just a letter from a lawyer. This lawyer told the business to pay $10,000 to settle. The tweet asked if the lawyer should be fired. What do you think?
So first of all, you sent me this as well in advance of this conversation. And I wrote about this whole ADA thing, a couple of years ago, because it was, it's been around, this issue. And now a lot of
specifically about websites.
Yeah, it's websites. So basically, if you're listening to this, your website's not in compliance with the American. I mean, the whose really is. I mean, there's a lot of rules around making sure that the fonts are big enough and you can click on things to get through. And then, there's also you're delivering stuff by audio because if somebody is blind and they want to come to your website, there's some rules involved that to be ADA compliant. So we are all exposed to that.
I have to say, every time I've read about this, there's been somebody has pointed out that either a government website that's relevant to the discussion isn't in fact itself ADA compliant, or the lawyer that's suing has a website that isn't ADA compliant. That's all, kind of thing is always coming up.
And not only that, so when you sent me sent me that tweet and whatever, I was like, I know my website's not compliant. My wife runs a nonprofit. I know hers isn't. So I emailed our web designer. The guy emails back and goes hey, listen, man, we have in our contract, we don't take any responsibility for any of these issues. You know what I mean? I was like, dude, I'm not going to sue you. I'm just asking for your advice. How do we get it? And in the example of the guy that was tweeting that you said, it was a Shopify e-commerce site, and apparently Shopify has some plugin that can fix the issue. So I was asking the guy, is there any plugins for WordPress? He's like, well, you can look, but listen, I don't know if I can help you. So anyway, all right. So now somebody said in this tweet they should fire the lawyer. Now I'm like, should I fire my web designer? I mean, this guy is not, I'm relying on him. He's my web guy, and I'm asking for advice, and he's running scared. The bottom line is this. if you're a small business and you're going to get notification from an attorney, it is 99% chance that it's frivolous, and it should just be ignored. They're probably sending it out to a lot of different places, and I think somebody even said in one of the tweets, it wasn't a lawsuit; it was just some threatening letter,
right?
And that's what these types of attorneys like to do. They send out a few hundred of these letters, maybe even more, hoping to scare somebody into writing them a check. So I wouldn't worry about it, but at the same time, I do think it's worthwhile talking to your web person, whoever that is. WordPress does have plugins, as do some, all the major GoDaddy. There's plugins.
And we should acknowledge, and I think this is where you're headed. We're kind of laughing about this because this has been abused, but the basic thought of making it possible for anybody to use a website is something we can all agree upon. And I don't think it's in many cases it's not that expensive to make sure that you are in fact compliant.
Lauren, you are absolutely right. Like, here I am talking about, protecting ourselves and, avoiding frivolous lawsuits and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm thinking like, you're right. In the end, it's like, this is designed to help disabled people. And like, here I am acting like, oh my God, what do we, you're right. You're right. I mean, we should be in compliance with this stuff because, the regulation does have good intentions, and we want our websites to be in compliance. First of all, because, there could be a blind or a deaf person that's out there that could be a prospective customer of ours. And
exactly.
Why are we ignoring that?
That's why they're on the website.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so let's talk about Florida. You've spent a month there. You wrote a piece for The Hill, I believe, kind of comparing and contrasting your experience in Florida right now with your experience in Philadelphia before you left. Tell us about that.
So, Lauren, you have to come here. I know you're tentative about flying or leaving home or whatever, but I'm still in Florida, coming back shortly. But I can tell you, I've been here for a month now. Let me tell you what I did yesterday. Okay, Lauren, just to let you know.
Go ahead.
In the morning, I got up early. I took my car to a Honda dealership in Fort Myers because it needed some service. There were like 20 or 30 people there. I was there for about 2 hours in the waiting room with a whole bunch of other people. Got it fixed, got the car.
You were all wearing masks, right?
No masks. We then I stop at a Wawa on the way to get a cup of coffee. Go in there, do my thing. No masks, right? I then go to a Publix supermarket, made another stop just to buy some groceries. No mask. By the way, a couple of masks. Some older people were were wearing masks, but for the most part, not. Employees were wearing masks, by the way, in all these places, except for the Honda dealership. That night, I went out, with my wife to dinner on Sanibel to a nice seafood restaurant. Nobody asked me for a vaccine card or if I was vaccinated. We ate indoors, as we've been indoors for a lot of stuff. The weather's been kind of iffy even this entire month. And we did our thing, right? Florida right now is it's wide open. I am not even carrying my mask around. From the first day we got here, I don't even have one.
And you feel comfortable doing that?
100%. I mean, I'm triple vaxxed, so I'm just not COVID worried. I mean, I'm just, I know I'm vaxxed. For all I know, I've had COVID, and if I get COVID, I'm not concerned. I'm healthy, and, if I get sick, I get sick, but I don't feel I'm going to go to the hospital or any more than I have with the flu. By the way, 2 weeks ago in Florida, just by coincidence, I spoke at a conference in Naples at the Naples Grand Resort. There were like 600 people there. I was there for 2 days in a row. I went there, and, I worked there, no social distancing, no mask. The only people wearing masks at the conference were probably people that were from New York, or Princeton. So,
thank you.
Right. Nobody else, whatever. The rooms are the same. It was all the same. It was like 2019 and before. There was no whatever. That's just what it is. Now, I'm going to head back to Philly. So I'm going to tell you another story. Right before I left Philly, I went to my local grocery store, and I got a call while I was there. I pulled down my mask and was talking on my cell phone. This manager came over to me and really gave it to me because I didn't have my mask on. I pulled it down. He said, you're not going to be allowed to come back here again. Put your mask on. And I apologized. He was right 100%, and I was wrong. And and I apologized. And I just feel bad because it's like this young kid. He's a manager of a grocery store, for God's sake, and he's got to play cop and yell at his customers. I'm in there all the time, because that's not part of his job description. But in Philly, if you're in any indoor spots, If you're running a business, your employees have to play policemen and get into fights with your customers if they're not wearing masks. And if you're running a restaurant in Philly, you can't let customers in unless they show proof of vaccination. And so when I talk to my clients in Philly, I talk to one guy, he owns 3 restaurants in Philadelphia. He says business is more than 50% off. And I spoke to another 2 clients that also said similar things. Their business is really down. It's compared year to year, like compared to like winter of 2019 down. And they say it's because nobody's coming into town because they're not, a lot of people aren't vaxxed. So they know they can't serve. So it's just 2 different parts of this country, 2 different approaches to dealing with COVID. I know you can figure out which approach I agree with.
Let me think about that.
I guess I'm just being a reporter here. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing.
Well, but you made clear in the things you've written, and you've written about this a number of times now. I guess the thing that I wonder about is that you have focused on Philadelphia's requirement of showing proof of vaccination to eat in a restaurant, and you mentioned your clients whose business is down. That's actually only really been in effect for about 2 weeks now. Well, no, you're right, except that they said it was a soft start. So for the first 2 weeks, they just asked you to show a test. And I don't know that they even really did that. It's only been the last 2 weeks that they really, that anybody's really enforced it. But the point that I would make is that I've also seen a lot of quotes from restaurant owners just talking about the impossibility of keeping their staffing numbers up because people are just getting sick. I mean, that's what Omicron is all about. It's so transmissible. Business may be off in these restaurants. How do we know it's because people don't want to, people who are not vaccinated can't get in, or is it because people are just generally nervous about eating out at a time when Omicron has been transmitting so rapidly, or is it because there are restaurants that have had to close down because they just didn't have enough staff?
So a couple things there. First of all, I think you're right. People are nervous in Philly. They don't seem to be very nervous in Florida. Every place we're going to.
Well, that's been true all along. I think that's been a very big difference. Part of it, I think, is that, in general, the weather has been better. I know not necessarily the past month that you described, but I think
the weather does play a part to some extent. Although I'll tell you, all the places I've been have been inside.
Right. I hear you.
The Wawa, the restaurants, the supermarkets. So, but the weather certainly should have an impact on that as well. But there is a different attitude here. The employee issue is an issue in Florida as well as in Philadelphia. It really is a very nice and convenient excuse, Lauren. I'm going to sound like that harsh Republican that I am, but if you're an employee and you got the sniffles, number one, you've got the perfect excuse to just call up and say, listen, I might have COVID. I've got the sniffles, so I just can't come in. And there's no boss in America that can fight you against that because, that's just not something that you do, even in Florida.
Well, some of these people don't get paid if they don't come in. So,
yes, that's true. But again, it gets back to whether or not, they need to come in. They can afford to take the day off. They've got the savings. They got whatever. But, they can take a little bit of time here and there, and that impacts the business. Plus, if you take time off because you're sick, it's not one of those things where like an employer is going to fire you because of it, because my God, you were sick or you potentially had COVID. So I think there's that going around as well. In the end, though, we're never going to know, Lauren, like it's going to take years to figure this out. But I will say this much, my point in the Hill column that I wrote, and I wrote about this elsewhere, there's this attitude of our leaders, at least in Florida, regardless of what you think of the people that are running the state, they are letting their businesses decide how they want to run their businesses and how safe they want to run it. There are some.
That's not really true, though. I think it's less true in Texas than Florida, but in both places, you can get in trouble actually for trying to enforce any sort of mandate.
Well,
so they're not really just letting the businesses decide.
On Sanibel Island that have requested that you wear a mask, or they've had signs saying if you're not vaccinated, please wear a mask. I've seen that. I haven't seen anybody require proof of a vaccination card. I've seen a lot of businesses here in Florida, like you go in the public supermarkets, all the employees are wearing masks, which is not something that, you would have seen 2 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So and by the way, I think employees should always, if you're dealing with food behind the deli, you know what I mean? Like you should always be wearing a mask forever. Maybe the people checking you out, you don't need to, but I guess my point is that the businesses themselves can figure out, because they want their customers to come and they want their employees to feel safe at their businesses. So, give them the respect of like making their decisions how to run their businesses. They don't want to get anybody sick. Whereas in Philadelphia, it's mandated. Like, sorry, these are the rules. If they're not vaccinated, you're not allowed to serve them. Even if you've got a separate area, even if you're, if you seat them outside, nobody can be served. If people's coming into your store, I don't care if the ceilings are 20 feet high and 50 feet wide, everybody's got to wear a mask. And if they're not wearing a mask, we can fine you, and we will fine you. So therefore, have that 26-year-old manager at the grocery store coming up to your customers and yelling at them to put on a mask, because God forbid if you get fined.
There is a public health aspect to this. We do have more than 2,500 people dying every day. Hospitals in many places, including Philadelphia, have been full.
But that's the thing, Lauren. I mean, and again, neither of us are epidemiologists or health experts. I mean, all we're doing is looking at the same incorrect data every day that the media feeds us.
Well, whoa. Let's not blame it all on the media.
But it seems like the cases and the and the hospitalizations and the deaths are not that different in Florida than they are in Philadelphia. And let me tell you something about Florida, Lauren. I've never seen so many senior living areas, so many assisted living facilities. This place is definitely God's waiting room. I mean, if there's any state that should be leading this country in COVID deaths, it should definitely be Florida.
Well, there is a difference. I mean, Florida has not done as well as Pennsylvania has, or certainly Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at the numbers. It's not.
We as a country are, I think, at this point, if not the worst, right at the top of the worst in terms of deaths per 100,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an ongoing discussion. Right. I guess, like I said, my takeaway is Philly is just, it's really depressing right now. It's very depressing. And Florida is extremely cheerful. And, everything is open and people are living with COVID, and the business owners are running their businesses even with COVID. Whereas in Philly, people are cowering from COVID, and businesses are not allowed to run their businesses unless they're following strict rules. And I just don't know, and we won't know for a while yet, but I just don't know when you look back on all this, did that really make a difference? All those rules. We'll see.
Well, one thing we can be hopeful about is the expectation has been from the beginning that based on the experience in other countries, Omicron would be something that burned bright and then faded. And it seems to be fading now. I think part of the argument for being as careful as possible was that there's a finite period of time we're dealing with here, and this is going to be over. Let's get through it. And let's hope that, we don't get hit with another variant anytime soon, and things can go back
to. And if we do that, the response may be a little bit more muted. Philadelphia health officials just announced last week that these restrictions were going to continue, and I'm quoting them for months. So that's really upsetting, I think, for a lot of my clients in Philadelphia. So we'll see. I hope that they will reconsider that, if these cases really do start to decline and the variant starts to fade, So. And also, there's been talk in Congress about funding, and it's not like I'm such a great, supporter of just giving money away, but these restaurants need it in certain cities. I mean, it's, that restaurant revitalization fund got eaten up really fast.
Way too quickly. Way too many places that needed the money did not get it. So
yeah, I think a targeted refresh of that fund would be really, really helpful to certain restaurants in certain parts of the country. And put all politics aside, it is what it is. They need help.
So we found something that we agree upon to end on. Gene,
we agree on lots of stuff, but
that's true.
Our websites are not ADA compliant. That's what we agree.
Gene, thank you for doing this. Have a great drive back to Philadelphia. I hope it's not too depressing when you get there. But really, thank you for doing this.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye now.